Welcome to this year's Engine Week. It's time to learn all about engines in aviation.
Nick Otterbeck, Avionics Aircraft. We've been here since 2004.
Firewall forward components, radiators, cowlings, engine mounts.
This is based on several hundred Corvair-powered Zeniths that have flown over the years.
Thunderbolt is kind of its own animal for Lycoming.
Now it's Continental Titan, that's where they came together. Yeah.
And we're looking for service and support dealers currently.
This is our 160 horsepower, same family of engine as the 140.
All right, so back up here in Shelbyville, Tennessee for Engine Week. There is a engine workshop happening this weekend. I thought I'd come out and talk to Nick about Jabiru. Nick, if you could introduce yourself real quick and what you do here in your awesome hangar with engines and airplanes.
Okay, Nick Otterbeck, Avionics Aircraft. We've been here since 2004. We are the sole importer to the U.S. for Jabiru engines, service, sales, and support. Although we service Canada, South America, Brazil, and beyond. So firewall forward kits, sales and support for the engines, overhauls, that's what we do here. In this building, we have an engine class going on. We can teach customers who are maintaining their own Jabirus, AMPs, IAs that are coming in to maintain engines. So that's what we do over here in our service center. Next door, I'm sure Brian will get some cool video from over there later on. That's our build center, and we do builder assist programs for all types of experimental aircraft. Of course, the Lightning, that's our design. It's a sleek, low-wing, two-place. We have a light sport and a Continental Titan powered aircraft that's compete with RV7s and RV9s, but we will build anything and everything for you. We've got Zeniths next door with Viking engines. We got Zeniths with UL power. We got Rotax powered stuff. We got Continentals. We got them. We have everything next door. Metal, sheet metal, fiberglass. We don't do tube and fabric. Well, we do Rand's products, but we don't, like, we're not going to build a Pete and Pull. So, but we do a lot of other stuff at the school next door. So,
all right, awesome. Well, thanks for the intro, and back to the engine here. So,
yeah.
The Jabiru is actually manufactured over in Australia, imported by Nick here in the United States, and you've been doing that for you and another guy for years.
So, Pete started bringing Jabirus over into the U.S. A long time ago, and we became business partners with Avionics Aircraft, and he eventually retired, and we took over sales and support of the engine, because talking to experimental home builders is a whole nother language. You know, it's not like just selling a car to somebody and here's your car. You have to know how to talk A into B and C into whole D, and so because we're home builders at heart, we know how to do that with the engines. So it worked out really good to take that over for him.
So we covered this engine 2 years ago, and we don't do the Engine Week series every year because there's not that much change. And to be honest, there hasn't been a whole lot change here either this past year, but there is a couple updates I want to talk about with you. But just to kind of catch you up if you're new to this platform, this engine platform, this is now the Gen 4. So this has seen many generations,
yes.
Lots of great change. They've kind of locked the design.
Yes.
And very specifically, talk to that, Nick.
Jabiru have been around since the late 80s. You know, small CNC'd engines. They had small 60 and 80 horse engines, and they've always been CNC'd, milled, two-piece heads, things like that, where you had to do head torques or valve adjustments. That was a long time ago. So because the design through the Gen 2 and the Gen 3 really started to take shape in a permanent form, Jabiru went cast everything. Number one, to keep production up and to keep prices low and costs low for the customers. The other thing, the big thing, was the service and the maintenance on the engine. Because a lot of guys, you know, they got Continental Lycoming. They don't torque heads, they don't do a jobs, they change oil and they fly the engine, right? They don't do anything else. So,
which is what the previous generations did as far as maintenance.
Yeah, so the previous generations, and we have some props here to look at, and I can show them. I think this would be an appropriate time.
Sure.
So Gen 1s, 2s, and 3s used to have a steel barrel and an aluminum head, and they bolted together, and you had head bolts, and every so often you'd periodically have to torque the head bolts, which, you know, people aren't used to doing that kind of stuff. So what makes this engine hugely different from that, this one's hard to see because this is all put together, but this is a cylinder off of a Generation 4 engine. You can see it's one piece. It's really hard to see on the camera, but there's a color change from where the Nicocell cylinder is to where the head is, and the heads are screwed onto the cylinders just like Continental Lycoming. They're screwed together permanently and indexed, so they never come apart, but no head bolts, so you're not doing any maintenance there. So literally the only maintenance to do to these Gen 4s is change the oil. There's nothing else you do. The valves.
So are these not sleeved then?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, there's an aluminum cylinder, aluminum head. The cylinders are nickel treated, and then they're screwed together, so there's no sleeves. Nope.
Gotcha. Okay.
No, so no corrosion. That was one big thing with the old steel barrels, and we talk about in class a lot, is the old steel barrels, if you know it sat for 2 or 3 or 4 months, you were a snowboard, you went to Florida for the winter, left your plane in Wisconsin, you come back, rusty cylinders. So maybe little compressions, maybe not. So that was another big thing with the Gen 4.
Now, was there any weight savings going from that system to this new? Pretty much like a wash.
No, it's a wash. I mean, the engines, we do a lot of swaps here. So somebody might have a 1,000-hour Gen 2 or something like that, and they buy a new Gen 4. We swap them, new weight and balance, and nothing changes. So they're a drop in replacement. There's no real weight changes to anything. So.
Okay, so that is kind of the updates over the years, these generations, and it's literally cast in stone. It's locked to this design now. And anything else beyond here, I think the long block, if you will, is going to stay where it is. Anything above and beyond will probably be ancillary to the outside if they do any updates.
Right.
Okay, which we'll talk about that in just a few minutes here. But going back to the basic function of the engine, let's talk about the ignition and carburation system on it.
Okay, so Jabiru, one of their design philosophies is simple. They don't want something that's computer controlled or battery powered or anything like that. They just want a simple aircraft engine. So we do have magnetos on the back, although they're not like a PMAG or Slick or something like that. They're an ignition coil. It's a solid state ignition coil. The flywheel has magnets. As the flywheel passes, they make a field, collapse, boom, there's a spark.
So it acts as a magneto.
It acts as a magneto.
Yeah.
You know, so once it's turning over, once it's running, it's running. You can take the battery out of the airplane and the thing will still run. Same thing with the charging system. It's on the back. It's integrated into the flywheel. You have magnets on the flywheel, and you have a stator in the center, kind of like a motorcycle. Motorcycle's a lot like that. So once it's turning, it's a permanent magnet alternator, basically. It needs no power to operate. Once it's spinning, it makes its own field. So you do need an AC to DC regulator on the aircraft, and the thing puts out, it's a 14-volt system and runs on 20 amps continuous, 32 peak.
So that is something different to point out here compared to a legacy engine, right?
Sure.
With this permanent magnet that creates power. So it's not an alternator, which is alternating current. It is creating current all the time, right? So when it's not needed, it has to dump it somewhere, right? And that where it goes to the regulator.
Yeah. So
and that takes the heat energy from that.
Yeah, so it's still AC power. We still have an AC pulse, but it's just all the time, and so the regulator, it's a shunt to ground regulator. So when whatever it doesn't use, it just grounds itself. And so yeah, it's a big regulator with a heat sink, and you blow cooling air across it with your installation and stuff like that. So
there's another part of this workshop going on separate from what we're talking about today that I'll try to get a clip or whatever to explain that installation, because I think you go over that in your workshop.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll cover a lot of that.
So that's the ignition system and charging, pretty basic, as you said, to keep it simple. Let's talk about how it gets fuel.
So right now, how they get fuel, we're going to change that a little bit. Today, how we get fuel is through a CV carburetor. So for many, many years, we had the Bing carburetor. Bing Model 94, 40 millimeter Bing, works excellent. Not Jabiru, but Bing stopped making the Model 94, the 40 millimeter. Still have the 32 millimeter that's on like Rotex 912s and things like that, but they don't have it anymore. So Jabiru has sourced another CV carburetor that looks and feels and smells like a Bing. It's a little bit different in some areas, but the concept is the same, the functionality is the same, and so that's what's on the engines now.
And this one is a little bit bigger because this is just one carburetor versus a dual carb system.
Right. Yeah. So we don't have dual carbs to sink or anything like that. It's just the manifold's on the bottom, and it's a rear induction sump, or manifold. So it's just one big carburetor.
Okay. And then there's a couple different options. This right here is the most popular because it's the highest horsepower, but what are the options, the offerings from Jabiru?
So Jabiru has the 3300 6-cylinder, that's 120 horsepower. This little guy here is one of our 85 horsepower engines. We take the stair shows. This is one of the test mules from a long time ago, and so we have it for air shows and stuff like that. That's 85 horsepower.
Okay. I didn't realize we're missing 2 cylinders here, so this is not the biggest one here.
I didn't mean to call you out. It's good to have that kind of stuff. No, but yeah, so they long time ago they had an 8-cylinder. Everybody talks about it once in a while. You can find little snippets of it, but that was 20-some years ago, and they don't make
I bet that sounded amazing.
It was really cool. They're really cool.
These sound amazing, to be honest, but
a big 8-cylinder, the exhaust note was really cool. It was really super smooth. Just it kind of died on the vine on the market because of other other kit engines that were similar to Lycoming and Continentals. You could buy a kit engine and build it that looked like that. Well, you're not going to.
So what stock is the 85?
85 horse.
85 and 120, and yep. Those are both operating at 3,300 RPM.
So yeah, so peak torque somewhere between 27 and 2,900. 3,300 RPM is red line. So the max horsepower is at that, but the peak torque's kind of in that 27 to 29 range where we cruise the engine. So
which means that you would prefer probably a 3-blade prop for this to have a little bit of a smaller diameter?
No, I mean we don't use a 3-blade prop on them. When we get the most out of them with a 2-blade, like a big, if it's on a Just Super Stall or a Rans or a Zenith 750, we run like a 68-inch prop. If it's on something like our Lightning, we'll run like a 60-inch prop with a bunch of pitch in it to turn it up. So it just depends on the application.
I just want to pop in real quick and invite you all to our 31-day build challenge, which starts in December 1st through the 31st, which is why the 31 days. Every day is an opportunity to get something done on your aircraft, even if it's something very small like reading plans or setting out something for the next day. The idea is everybody has their end of year New Year's resolution, and this is kind of a way to get started very early in December. And amongst other builders, they're doing the same thing. So I invite you to post some, we prefer video, but definitely photos of what you got going on in your hangar or your home workshop or even at your kitchen counter. Share with everybody what you got going on the Experimental Aircraft Channel group. That's on Facebook. Just search Experimental Aircraft Channel and groups. That should pop right up. And join us for the 31-day build challenge. And also, let's take a moment right now to thank our sponsors. Dynon Avionics at Dynon.com, the premier provider of glass panel avionics systems for experimental and light sport aircraft. And visit our website at ExperimentalAircraftChannel.com for new videos and easy to navigate playlists and so much more. Okay, very good. All right, so we've talked about the basics of this, the horsepower ranges, how this thing functions and so forth. Let's talk about some of the news as of 2024, right? Sure. What's changes? There's two kind of big things I think that's happening.
Engines are in stock. That's a big change.
Okay, there's three things that are kind of big. Last time I did this, I think we were 9 months to a year in lead times.
Because of manufacturing, the engine built in Bundaberg, Australia, but the cast parts, that's not something they do in-house. So that's done in New Zealand.
Okay.
And the parts have to come over and shipping and this and that and other stuff. So Jabiru engines are in stock because of one of the other things we'll talk about, but they are in stock and ready to ship because not probably because of Jabiru, but Jabiru has new ownership. They've, as of the first of the year in January, a gentleman named Mick, who...
not Dundee.
No, although I have a story about that, but we'll talk about that later. It involves my mechanic, Jason. So, anyways, Mick has come on board and Jabiru's done really great things for a very long time, but everybody there is getting towards retirement age and getting a new, fresh idea, new set of eyes, new thoughts into the process is always good for something, right?
Sure.
And so Mick has come on board as of the first of the year officially, and done a lot of cool things and neat things with Jabiru. So we got some neat stuff coming up next year because of that, and that was always, I think, in the fire too before then. But engines are in stock. We have a lot of good conversations, a lot of good information. He was here at Oshkosh this year. He came and spent the entire week and was blown away. I don't think he's ever been to Oshkosh before, and got to see what light aviation, experimental aviation is in the States.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not like that is in Australia. It's completely different here. So.
Yeah, and it sounds like he wants to go into a couple different new directions, which we can talk about in another episode. Maybe you could set me up with him to discuss those new things in the future.
That would be great. He would love to talk about that.
So one thing I did kind of see floating around on social kind of lightly, there is a new offering for this engine.
Yes.
And some new old technology. What's that about?
So they're going, it's out there anyway, so we can talk about it. They're going to try and launch it in March, which is the big Australian, their EAA basically air show, and that's mechanical fuel injection is coming. Not a TBI injection. It is going to be direct port mechanical injection into the engine.
Nice.
And that's coming. I've seen some stuff. I mean, I got a few things I can share, some I can't, but it's coming in March, and when it comes out in March, we'll share more. But it's going to be available for the 2200 and the 3300 as well. So.
Now, explain to everybody what is the advantage over a carburetor or adding a system fuel injection to to this?
So the big thing we notice with our traditional engines with the mechanical fuel injection or the other ones, we get a little bit of efficiency, but cold starting, priming, the ability to lean the engine, do things like that, you can get some of that out. Well, you can do it with a carburetor too, but the injection system gets you more even fuel burn through cylinders, stuff like that.
Because you're going direct to each one.
Yeah, and you can tune it to each cylinder. You can tune it so that you don't have one that's hotter than the other one or colder than the other one. So there are advantages. People think about horsepower. Not really. Not really. Fly upside down, but we don't have inverted oil, so we don't do that.
Right.
But there are operational advantages to the fuel injection system. So.
Okay. Well, a couple new things to report. Again, Engine Week we do every other year because sometimes there's just not much to talk about other than
price increases.
Price increases. Well, that's number 4.
Yeah.
So for 2024, well, I think the last one was right around 2020, 2021.
Yeah, we had
was a little one.
We hadn't raised our price in a very long time. We don't price ours to the Australian dollar. Some places call for a quote, and it shapes every day. We try to hold a price as long as humanly possible. Well, the Australian dollar's been creeping up, and so we just, between that and coming up on some of the new stuff, we had to bump the price up in the States. But our price is at our door here in Shelbyville. So you're not paying VAT, you're not paying shipping, you're not paying import costs.
If you come pick it up here.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to get it shipped to Florida or Georgia or something like that. But you're not having to pay all that Australian. Yeah, the price I give you is in my door here on the floor.
Okay.
So.
And so I don't get completely obliterated in the comments section for not asking. As of today, and we are in the end of the very last day of October, what is the price range to expect on the 120 and the 85?
So the 3300 is $24,900, and that comes with a lot of cool goodies we looked at last time with engine. There's air ducts and regular rectifiers and engine rubbers and stuff like that. Everything, it comes with a lot of stuff. Muffler, alternator, starter. So the 2200 is $19,900 for all the same stuff. So, and we'll hold those prices till the end of the year.
And the good thing is, and if you're new to this, welcome. The other part of owning an aircraft and building an airplane, there's the engine package, but there's always a firewall forward kit. And you have developed several, not all, but several.
Not all. Yeah.
Okay, and which different platforms have you developed for that?
So our most popular has to be the Xena 750, either the STOL or the Cruiser. Essentially the same firewall forward kit on both, followed by probably the 601, 650 setup that we do. So Zenith, they got a lot of airplanes out there, and these engines seem to be really popular in those engines. We do also Sonics and Rans S7 Curry, Rans S6. We do Rans S19, a bunch of the Kit Foxes. So we've got a pretty big kind of selection for you there. So, and even if we don't have a firewall forward kit for a lot of those, Jabiru in Australia does have engine mounts. So we have a pretty long list of engine mounts that are available for most aircraft. Dragonflies and KR2s and Pete and Pulls. We can get an engine mount if you're willing to build your cowling, or we can get you a nose bowl, that'll match the engine so you can build the rest of your cowling. So, but a firewall forward package is always the best, because there's no guesswork. You just take the manual and bolt it on.
So aside from the engine, you want to expect somewhere, depends on which platform again, somewhere between like $5,000 and $10,000 is usually about where those fall.
Yeah, ours is pretty consistent, about $6,500 for the complete firewall forward package. That's less the engine, of course, but that's the cowlings, the spinner, the prop. It's a ground adjustable prop. We do with most all of them. The airbox, oil cooler line, throttle cables, and things like that. So yeah, they're right at that 62 to 65 for all of our kits.
All right, kind of wrap up here on the engine, and being that we're standing in the engine workshop classroom that will be starting tomorrow, that's something else to talk about. Nick offers this class 3 times a year, and what roughly are those dates throughout the year?
So we do 3. We try to squeeze in 4, but we always do one in September, October time, and then sometime like right now we're in November. So we always try to do 2 in the fall and 1 or 2 in the spring. The next one will be in February, and we might, depending on what we got going around here, maybe get one in May. A lot of that depends on too is how hot it gets. Nobody likes to come in the hangar in August and sit here and sweat. So we try to do it when it's in the fall or spring where it's cool.
And that's here in Shelbyville, Tennessee. Is there any place else in the world that might be able to get this class?
So I would suspect that in the near future they will be able to do this class in Australia, possibly. We do have our February class. We have a couple of people from Australia coming over. They're going to come over and take our class, look through our class, because they concentrate on engines, building engines, designing engines, putting them in planes and going. And so we're always hands-on with the customers because of the service center and the build center. So that's
the
why
maintenance part of it.
So that's why we've come up with the class. So they're going to get more into that over there. So they're going to be coming over, taking our class, and soon after our class, Jason, who teaches this class with me, is going to be headed to Australia and going to head up one of their first classes over there with them. And once they get that class, I know the first bunch will probably be open to their maintenance people. Their maintenance, their AMPs and IAs, their version of that over there. And so maybe they'll open it up to civilian customers.
Well, if you are interested in aircraft and aviation at all, even if you're not totally sold on the Jabiru, I recommend coming to this class. I went last year, and just kind of like as a general knowledge of engines, like this is the kind of legacy air-cooled, oil-cooled engine, and there's lots to learn about it. And then going to the CV carburetor, like it's really a deep dive into the mechanics and understanding this. Like we have a whole table over here. I'll give a shot of that. Like this engine completely broken down to the bare parts, right?
Yeah. Those are parts we'll be handing out in class, discussing the part, discussing the systems, where it is, how it works. Not as much as how to maintain it until we get to the second portion of class. But yeah, that's how we joke in class, is like the part of this class, the point to coming is to make sure your parts don't end up in it. And we like to tell customers that, but
this is a bad example of what happened.
Don't do this. So, but yeah, that's the whole point of class, is to educate people. And so we have guys that come that don't have Jabiru engines at all. Maybe they're thinking about buying one. Maybe they're just a mechanic and they want to learn about it because they might maintain it. And so it's a good class for everybody.
And that's what I mean. Like even if you haven't decided on an engine yet, and I'm not trying to sell you a Jabiru. That's his job, right? I'm just providing the information. But sitting in this class and learning from like the camshaft to the crankshaft and how it all goes together, and the timing and all this stuff like that, it's just like it's a lot to put in your memory bank for future stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then after the class, if you're comfortable with it, then you might be sold on the idea of it. Right. But again, it just as just pure mechanics, it's an enjoyable time. It's 8 to 5, 2 days.
Yep. Yeah, we're here today, Friday and Saturday, 8 to 5. We got some lunch and things like that, but we go all day. We go and sometimes we go longer, depending on how big the class is. We got a really big class this time, and a lot of our I would say we have a lot of PowerPoint, we have a lot of hands-on, but we also drive the class based on what customers or students ask. You know, if they got questions, we'll kind of pencil that down and hit that when we get to that part of class. But it's just as much driven by them as it is what we have for material. So.
Okay, well, I'll put a link in the description below this video and up here on the screen. If you want to reach out to Nick directly, find out what the schedule is for the engine workshops, or to ask more questions about the Jabiru specifically. But yeah, I appreciate the update and looking forward to the class tomorrow.
We appreciate you coming and taking the time, because it's good to get the word out either way. You know?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Thank you to our patrons over on Patreon and 10TED10 in our co-pilot status. If you feel like supporting us, check us out on patreon.com. And if you are new here, welcome. You are invited right now to subscribe, like this video, and hit that bell so you don't miss a single episode.
So you name it.
It's fine.
Is it good?
It's fine.
Just gonna leave that in there.
That is going to be our primary camera moving forward, but for the most part, you and I are just going to be talking anyway after this part.
So you want to start over?
No.
Oh,
I'll just edit that last part out.